This is a quick demo to show you how allocation of costs work. We use allocation when we can't assign a cost. So if I work 20 hours and it's funded by the Kellogg grant, my example here, then you would assign that to the Kellogg grant. But our problem is we want to allocate indirect costs. And what I've done here is I've created this just to show you how it works in non-accounting terms. And what I have is what we're putting for the Kellogg grant and the non-grant funded. So we've just broken our entire statement of financial activity, or P&L if you're a for-profit person, between those two uh, funding sources, right? No funding source, just out of general contributions, I guess. And then over here we have what's funded by the Kellogg grant. Pay no attention to the numbers, I just made them all up. So the first thing we have to do is figure out what our total indirect expenses are that we want to allocate to the grant. And I just went through ChatGPT and I said, give me a bunch of categories for indirect expenses. You may or may not be using these, but you get the drift. You've gone through and somehow come up with the idea that you're assigning, in this case, $1,000 of your total off rent or mortgage space for offices to this particular grant, and so on down the line. How you come up with these numbers, we can discuss that. But right now, we're just going to say that, hey, we've got $7,220 in indirect expenses that we want to assign, or I'm sorry, to allocate to the grant. And how do we do this? Well, here's what it looks like. I just made a copy of that. Come over here and you notice we've created an expense allocation account. And this is exactly what this is for, is to take expenditures and allocate them to, in this case, a grant. You could also do it to a class, which would be your programs, your fundraisers, probably not administrative, because usually that's where it's coming from. So I'm down here, and what I really want to do is I want to say, okay, I've got to allocate, pardon. Okay, there we go. Now that I got control of my mouse. So you see that I took the $7,220, and the way this works is that we assign it to this expense allocation account, and we identify it as being grant funding. And of course, we have to have a two-sided entry. So the other side of the entry is the same account or category in QuickBooks, but it's the reverse. So the total is zero, because we don't want to increase or decrease our total statement of activity. All we want to do is assign it or allocate it. So in this case, we've allocated it doing this. And the way that works in QuickBooks is pretty simple. There are several ways of doing this. I created this journal entry, and you'll notice that we're debiting and crediting the same category. And here I said it was administrative, and we're assigning it to, or allocating it to programming. There was no funding, remember, and we're assigning it to, I keep using that word, allocating it to the Kellogg grant in this case. And we put a little note here. So for all you accounting fans, a debit increases your expenditure. So we're increasing the debits to Kellogg Foundation for this, and we are crediting or relieving the blank grant, and I put it to administrative. We can talk about this. So at the end of the day, this is pretty simple. We're just taking it out of one, putting it to the other, and we're allocating it to the grant and to, in this case, a different uh, class. This also works, by the way, for class allocations. I've seen that done as well. I think that makes some sense. I'm not sure. Anyway, let me know.